Hey, hi, it's me, Jarrett Casey, Jarrett Earl Casey. um, October 9th in 2020. Um, sorry, just adjusting that there. Yeah, so it's October 9th, 2020, and once again, I'm Jarrett Casey, Jarrett Earl Casey. I just got home from work again, and I had a pretty good day. I worked a double today, and it was pretty good. I kind of slept in today. I kept waking up and then falling back asleep. I was kind of refusing to get up. And there's some people in my head, as we've all talked about. And there's one gentleman in particular, and he's very kind, although I don't treat him very kindly back. He's not all he's my understanding is we see a lot of things pretty similarly, pretty eye to eye, and then other things we don't. Um, it's hard because I don't really hear his voice directly very often. Every once in a while, I can kind of feel his presence and what he's thinking, but I have to hear him through what I call a translator. So it's someone who's connected to me and connected to him, and they kind of relay messages back and forth. Um, so I'm also connected to him. I just don't hear his voice as clearly. I have heard his voice, sort of. It's a weird. Anyways, he he keeps. I think he's trying to advocate for me. Um, but he needs me to be picture perfect. Although I think that's kind of changed with time. I think now he just really wants me to basically get up at the same time every morning and have productive days and not waste time, um, and be really good with my money, which I'm not good at either one of those things. Um, I really value my rest, and when I'm feeling certain ways, I'm like, you know what? I just need to lay here and just not escape the world, but I need to sleep, I need to rest, I need to visit my dream state, I need to process. I need to just sit in my sadness for a little while. And I think a lot of emotional people are that way. A lot of empaths are that way. It's a fairly common thing for certain types of humans to do, to need to kind of sit in their emotion and process it and feel it, or just kind of go through it. And sometimes when you're at a really emotional points in your life, so sometimes your life is pretty steady, and solid. And so even if you're that type of person, you don't have to really take that time. And then there's other times when you're feeling isolated, or there's a lot going on, in your life or in the lives of those around you, and you're picking up on that or whatever it is. And you just need more time. You just need to kind of to lay there sometimes, or walk around and think and talk to yourself, or talk to someone else, or um, whatever it is. So I feel like I'm kind of in one of those points in my life. So it's hard because I want to be able to do that, be that like type A person that just gets up and goes and does their things and doesn't let the world affect them. Um, and also sometimes so this morning was, I'm like, I just need to sit here. I just need to lay here. I'm sorry. And it was upsetting him. And then of course I get upset that people want to control me. So when things like that happen, I'm like, nope, I need to do that. But then I get so caught up in the fighting against them that I stop even doing that, and I just start fighting. And so that's kind of what happened this morning. At first I was like, no, I need to lay here. And then I kept getting pushed back. And so then I was just pushing back for the sake pushing back because they were pushing back. If that makes any sense. So I need to stop doing that, and I do want to. I have that new job starting in a couple weeks, so I do want to start on a more regular schedule, to start building a routine. I don't know how good I'll be at that, but without a partner, or I was going to say without a partner or a purpose. I have a purpose, but although I don't see my purpose as having anything to do with what time I get up in the bed, out of bed in the morning, it's just what this extraneous world has decided is important, or is more important than some other things. So anyways, hello to the joiner. But that's it. So tomorrow I have tomorrow off, and I'm gonna go to a dance class. I'm gonna go ahead and spend some time at my parents'. And that's that. I heard today that maybe people will approach me or speak to me soon. And I also heard today that my family, through time, so maybe my ancestry and things like this, had given some sort of approval on me, that they finally saw me as worthy or growing up or acceptable. It was hard because I heard it while I was at work, and so I started tearing up and crying as I was approaching a table. So I had to push all that back. I couldn't let that emotion flow through, and it's really hard sometimes when I have breakthroughs and I want to cry, or I want to feel some feeling that's coming up, and I have to swallow it back down and push it down because I'm at work, or I'm in a place where it's not appropriate or acceptable to be feeling emotions. But I can't choose when that stuff happens in my mind, or when I receive that news in my mind. I'm hoping that at some point those same things will be vocalized or communicated in person, in a time and place where it's okay for me to feel emotion, so that it can come back up and be expressed, rather than coming up wanting to be expressed and continuously being pushed back because of societal expectations or things like this. So I think that would be very helpful. Anyways, let's read. So this is Chapter 5, Healing and Wholeness, Section 4, Teaching and Healing. Cool. What fear has hidden still is part of you. Joining the atonement is the way out of fear. The Holy Spirit will help you reinterpret everything that you perceive as fearful, and teach you that only what is loving is true. Truth is beyond your ability to destroy, but entirely within your ability to accept. It belongs to you because, as an extension of God, you created it with Him. It is yours because it is part of you, just as you are a part of God because He created you. Nothing that is good can be lost because it comes from the Holy Spirit, the voice for creation. Nothing that is not good was ever created, and therefore cannot be protected. The atonement is the guarantee of the safety of the kingdom, and the union of the sonship is its protection. The ego cannot prevail against the kingdom because the sonship is united. In the presence of those who hear the Holy Spirit's call to be as one, the ego fades away and is undone. What the ego makes, it keeps to itself. And so it is without strength. Its existence is unshared. It does not die. It was merely never born. Physical birth is not a beginning, it is a continuing. Everything that continues has already been born. It will increase as you are willing to return the unhealed part of your mind to the higher part, returning it undivided to creation. I have come to give you the foundation so your own thoughts can make you really free. You have carried the burden of unshared ideas that are too weak to increase. But having made them, you did not realize how to undo them. You cannot cancel out your past errors alone. They will not disappear from your mind without the atonement, a remedy not of your making. The atonement must be understood as a pure act of sharing. That is what is meant when I said it is possible, even in this world, to listen to one voice. If you are part of God and the sonship is one, you cannot be limited to the self the ego sees. Every loving thought held in any part of the sonship belongs to every part. It is shared because it is loving. Sharing is God's way of creating, and also yours. The ego can keep you in exile from the kingdom, but in the kingdom itself, it has no power. Ideas of the spirit do not leave the mind that thinks them, nor can they conflict with each other. However, ideas of the ego can conflict because they occur at different levels and also include opposite thoughts at the same level. It is impossible to share opposing thoughts. You can share only the thoughts that are of God and that He keeps for you. And of such is the kingdom of heaven. The rest remains with you until the Holy Spirit has reinterpreted them in the light of the kingdom, making them, too, worthy of being shared. When they have been sufficiently purified, He lets you give them away. The decision to share them is their purification. I heard one voice because I understood that I could not atone for myself alone. Listening to one voice implies the decision to share it in order to hear it yourself. The mind that was in me is still irresistibly drawn to every mind created by God, because God's wholeness is the wholeness of His Son. You cannot be hurt and do not want to show your brother anything except your wholeness. Show him that he cannot hurt you and hold nothing against him, or you hold it against yourself. This is the meaning of turning the other cheek. Teaching is done in many ways, above all by example. Teaching should be healing because it is the sharing of ideas and the recognition that to share ideas is to strengthen them. I cannot forget my need to teach what I have learned, which arose in me because I learned it. I call upon you to teach what you have learned, because by doing so, you can depend on it. Make it dependable in my name, because my name is the name of God's Son. What I learned, I give you freely, and the mind that was in me rejoices as you choose to hear it. The Holy Spirit atones in all of us by undoing, and thus lifts the burden you have placed in your mind. By following Him, you are led back to God where you belong. And how can you find the way except by taking your brother with you? My part in the atonement is not complete until you join it and give it away. As you teach, so you shall learn. So shall you learn. I will never leave you or forsake you, because to forsake you would be to forsake myself and God who created me. You must learn to see them as they are. You forsake yourself and God if you forsake any of your brothers. You must learn to see them as they are and understand they belong to God as you do. How could you treat your brother better than by rendering unto God the things that are God's? The atonement gives you the power of a healed mind, but the power to create is of God. Therefore, those who have been forgiven must devote themselves first to healing, because having received the idea of healing, they must give it to hold it. The full power of creation cannot be expressed as long as any of God's ideas is withheld from the kingdom. The joint will of the sonship is the only creator that can create like the Father, because only the complete can think completely, and the thinking of God lacks nothing. Everything you think that is not through the Holy Spirit is lacking. How can you, who are so holy, suffer? All your past except its beauty is gone, and nothing is left but a blessing. I have saved all your kindnesses and every loving thought you ever had. I have purified them of the errors that hid their light, and kept them for you in their own perfect radiance. They are beyond destruction and beyond guilt. They came from the Holy Spirit within you, and we know that what God creates is eternal. You can indeed depart in peace, because I have loved you as I have loved myself. You go with my blessing and for my blessing. Hold it and share it, that it may always be ours. I place the peace of God in your heart and in your hands to hold and share. The heart is pure to hold it, and the hands are strong to give it. We cannot lose. My judgment is as strong as the wisdom of God, in whose heart and hands we have our being. His quiet children are his blessed sons. The thoughts of God are with you. So I love the part where he says, I have saved all your kindnesses and every loving thought you ever had. I have purified them of the errors that hid their light and kept them for you in their own perfect radiance. So I've spoken about this in my mind quite a few times. And the way I always phrase it is, we get to keep all the good stuff. So as we look back on our path and all of our lives, every thought we've ever had, and everything that's been created, or brought to form or brought to awareness due to those thoughts, that's good, right? So it brings joy, it brings love, it's born from love, it's happiness, it's security, it's safety, it's patience, it's peace, it's wonder, it's awe or awesome, it's beautiful, it's good, it's all the good stuff. That's all preserved for us, and so it's such a blessing to read this here, because some people talk about going through the veil of forgetfulness, and when we come back and we live lives, or we just hear, we're like, we forget so much. And so I believe that there's a point in our journey where we do go through a veil of sorts, and what it does is it washes away all the bad stuff, all the fear, all the anxiety, all the doubt, all the judgment, but we get to keep all the good stuff, which is what he's saying here, that he has saved all of our kindnesses and every loving thought we've ever had, and purified the errors that hid their light and kept them for you in their own perfect radiance. And so there comes a point where we go through a different kind of veil, and we remember everything, and we only remember what's real and what's true. We get to keep all the good stuff, and all the fear that kept that from our awareness or diminished it or interrupted it is corrected. And so we just get to keep all the joy. And the cool thing is, we get to keep going. We get to keep going in this beautiful thing called creation, and the joy it just keeps increasing. It just never stops. It's unending love. It's a constant state of joy. It's just beaming, radiant, magnificent, constant joy. And so some people say, how can we know joy unless we know pain, right? We can't know joy unless we know pain. We could be in a constant state of joy and we wouldn't even appreciate it, right? Because we wouldn't even know it. We need to know pain. And so that's a falsehood. That's just not true. And I hate when people say that. I don't hate them. And some of the most beautiful, amazing people that I care for so much in my life keep saying, "Oh, well, I guess that we need to go through this, and this will help us appreciate the good times." And it's like, that's a very admirable place to come from, and you are just powering through it. And I need you to know that you don't have to go through this. None of this pain is required. You don't need the pain to know the joy. The joy is the only part that's real. So always remember that, okay? If somebody tries to sell you off on like, oh, well, it's just that's just life. That's part of the game, you just you just got to go through this hard stuff. It's going to hurt. You might not make it, but it's bullshit. It's total bullshit. It's all made up. That's total ego. And, I'm going through a hard time right now. I mean, it could be worse. So I'm very grateful that I'm safe and cared for. But and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going through this. Do I need to be? Nope. And people would say, well, then why are you going through it? You're going through it because you need to go through it. Nope, I don't need to go through this. All the people out there in this world that are struggling or that suffer or who are made to suffer also don't need to be going through that. That's just another falsehood. But yes, I acknowledge that I am going through this. I accept that. Accepting something doesn't mean you approve of it. It just means, okay, well, I'm going through this. It is what it is. I don't need to be. I can stop at any point. And the same is true for every single one of you. It's the same is true for every person in my life. That if you're struggling or you seem to be suffering or someone's making you suffer, you don't have to be going through that. And it can stop at any point. And we should all be coming together to try and end as much suffering as we can. And people say, oh, well, you're choosing to suffer. And it's like, okay, well, I understand that as well. Not really. And I do know that some people are so resilient that they could be in a similar situation and not suffer at all. And that's, wow, amazing. For me, I really struggle with that. And the solution is to join with my brothers and sisters. It's for us to come together and be present for one another and help each other through it. So it's very simple. And to separate people and siphon them off into little boxes and separate them and isolate them, and to pick up the ones that aren't suffering and go, great job, you're perfect. And the rest say, well, that's your fault. You're choosing to suffer. See these other people, they went through the same thing and they didn't suffer. So you're obviously choosing this. So there's something wrong with you, is just a falsehood, and it's disingenuous. And I think a lot of the people that try to do that to people know exactly what they're doing. So it's disheartening. But anyways, that's my 2 bits. But point is, I love here that he reminds us, and it's a reminder to me because I don't think I've ever read this part of the course. So I'm like, cool, I knew it. That he saved every kindness and every loving thought we've ever had and kept them for us in their own perfect radiance. So what a joy it will be to bring our awareness to that as a starting point, right? So think of every joy you've ever experienced, perfectly preserved in perfect and pure radiance, and have that as your starting point. Just so amazing. So I also love here he tells us that teaching should be healing, right? So that's great. And that it's done in many ways, above all by example. So we have this form of teaching, which is reading. We have this form talking about it, bearing our testimonies. We have presenting or illustrating concepts in movies and music. We have messages that are encoded into all the mediums we experience in life. And those are all forms of teaching. And then, of course, there's the most powerful form of teaching, which is just showing the world how it's done. And so if you have an audience that can witness you just showing up and teaching by leading and teaching by doing, then that's one of the most powerful things you can do. And of course, we are the best when we're teaching together, especially because to teach usually means there's a student. And so it's just so natural for us to teach with our brothers and sisters, to teach, to use opportunities for teaching to do just that. So when somebody is struggling or needs help or has a question or is confused or doesn't understand something, when we show up and we offer them answers and we show them and we practice our beliefs with them, we offer them forgiveness, we offer them love and gentle patience and guidance. Those are all really powerful ways to teach by example. And of course, that can go in partnership with so many other forms of teaching as well. But what a blessing it is to have those opportunities. And then I love this. Every loving thought held in any part of the sonship belongs to every part. It is shared because it is loving. So every loving thought that you've ever had is not only perfectly preserved in pure radiance, but it can be shared. All of that joy that you've created can be shared with every single part of the sonship, because our love belongs to everyone, and our joy belongs to everyone. And so don't be afraid if you have a something that brings you joy, a thought, a song, a gift, a painting, to share it with everyone. And if you're feeling joyous, let that just shine through. Don't hold back. Because your joy belongs with your brothers and sisters too. It's meant to be shared. So don't let people silence you or tell you that lighting up a room is something you shouldn't be doing. And if you're walking into a room and you're not lighting it up, it's okay. You're perfect. I'm right there with you. People used to be like, oh, you light up the room every time you walk in. And now I walk in and I'm like, oh, I think I just sucked all the energy out. Not really, but I'm like, I don't know where that guy went. I'm like, where am I? I'm right here. I'm right here. But so it's okay. It's also okay to just to be struggling or to have emotions that you're moving through or working through or processing or finding a way to express right now. So it's okay. It's okay. And there's a great joy to be experienced when we emerge from that process as well. So And that doesn't mean that as we're going through it that we don't experience joy even through that. So you're in a good place. It's okay to be exactly where you're at. And that doesn't mean that if something terrible is happening to you, or someone is targeting you or hurting you, that doesn't mean that that's where you need to be. So don't ever let people use that reasoning. Oh, you're exactly where you're supposed to be, and so, oh, I guess something terrible's happening to you, and you're exactly where you're supposed to be. So that's not true. It's talking about your state of mind, like not even that. Wherever you're at in your relationship with Christ, in your understanding of how you're experiencing your world and processing the feelings that are associated with what you seem to be experiencing, that's exactly where you need to be. And that doesn't mean that if you're going through that alone, that that's how you need to be. It just means wherever you're at in that process, it's exactly where you need to be. And if you can evaluate that and look at it honestly and go, okay, so this is where I'm at with this. And so that means that I'm going to go ahead and reach out and ask for this help or this help. That's perfect. So that's exactly where you need to be, right? And that means that you should be asking for that help or reaching out for it, and receiving it. Or even if you don't know how to reach out for it, somewhere pray for it in your mind, call out, and be open to receiving that help. So that's what it's meant by you're exactly where you need to be. So, but if somebody is trying to hurt you, that do not ever let someone say, well, you're exactly where you need to be, or you attracted that into your life, or that's your fault, or that's what happens when you do this. That's all not true. So ring the alarm, call someone, put those boundaries up, saying, nope, I didn't ask for that. I actually didn't ask for that. I'm actually very clearly communicating to you right now that this is not okay. And I need you to stop so that I can be where I'm at right now, and start proactively working through this. So I can't have you be doing that right now. That's not okay. And also don't ever look at someone who's having something terrible happen to them and say, well, you're exactly where you need to be. I guess that's what needs to happen right now, because that's just not true. So please don't ever say that to people. Okay? It's very important. It's very, very important. All right. Well, thank you. Have a wonderful night. It's 11 o'clock. I'm going to bed. I love you. Oh, tomorrow we'll be reading The Ego's Use of Guilt. And then after that is Time and Eternity. I'm excited for that one. All right. I love you. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.